Hey everybody, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, it's been almost 2 years since ChatGPT introduced the world at large.
Has it been that long?
Gen AI. It was like November
Dude, it was
22.
just last month, it feels like.
Sometimes, but it also kind of feels like it's been around forever because we just keep talking about it.
That's fair. That's fair.
But, the question still is, what's it really doing for us? What's it going to do next? What's it going to do for our listeners and their businesses?
Yes.
So today we're getting into that topic. We've got Honeywell's Michael Groskopf with us.
Nice.
I feel like I have to introduce the person on the
because he's physically
he's actually here in the studio with us.
Yes.
It's easier to hide them when they're on a screen in front of us and not sitting here next to us. So we appreciate having Michael here. But he's going to talk just a little bit about why AI has suddenly got ramped up, even though it's not new. It's not new. It's not like it literally was just invented a couple of years ago.
Been around for decades.
Talking about it. Yeah. We're going to talk about Gen AI and what it can do for businesses, how it can help out folks in the channel and them to drive their business beyond the stuff that everyone usually thinks about and uses it for. We'll talk data analysis, how that fits into the picture. We're going to talk about the next step. We're going to make Michael give us some predictions for the future.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Predictions.
Yeah. And we'll hold you to them, too. This is recorded.
It's a time capsule.
No editing either.
No editing. That's right.
Exactly. And then Michael tells us a little bit about how Honeywell is tackling the AI explosion. So we got lots of good stuff to cover today.
That's good stuff. Yep.
So all that plus our usual what's tech connecting with you as well. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today is Michael Groskopf. He is the CIO of Productivity and Solution Services at Honeywell. So first, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming to the studio today. I know you're somewhat local to us, so you didn't mind coming in, but still, we appreciate it. We don't get to entertain in the studio very often. Yeah. Marco was just cleaning up actually before you got here. He was literally dusting off the sofas and getting gear out of the way.
God, we got to clean up the living room. We got guests coming over.
We do the same thing at our house. We clean up the house before the cleaner comes over or the babysitter. Right.
Yeah,
this
is
a mess.
This is usually like a bachelor podcast studio, but for two married guys. But hey, we appreciate having you here. So tell us a little about your background. What do you do at Honeywell, and and also because you got volunteered as the guy to come in and talk about AI. So what's your experience with AI and why it's kind of become maybe your niche?
Yeah, appreciate it. So I am the CIO for the Productivity Solutions and Services business at Honeywell, as well as the Intelligrated business, which is warehouse conveyor. It's based out of Mason, which is just about 30 minutes north of here, which is why I'm based here in Cincinnati. But Productivity Solutions and Services, rugged mobility. So think about a scanner that, the delivery driver might have when they scan your product that gets delivered to your doorstep.
Right.
Pretty good chance they're using one of our scanners, right? Same with printers. Rugged mobility, you want those products to actually withstand some drops, basically.
Yes.
Not just your kid that picks up your iPhone and drops it on the kitchen floor. You're talking about stuff that drops from 20 feet up on a forklift, right? So I've been with Honeywell for 3 years now. Recently took on this PSS role, focused on mobile devices, basically. Formerly with General Electric, so 21 years with GE. I was most recently the CIO for the ERP instances there that they have, basically running all of their shops worldwide. And so, grew up there with GE, and the opportunity here at Honeywell was just too good to pass up. And it's been I'll tell you what, 3 years at Honeywell is like dog years. I feel like I'm 21 years. I just had my 3-year anniversary.
In the tooth, yes, right.
Really is. So it's been a race ever since. But the business is doing very well, and it's keeping me very motivated to come into the office every day.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, innovation doesn't slow down.
It certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't. And
especially at Honeywell.
Yes. Exactly. And the advancements of Gen AI have definitely helped us in that regard too. We use generative AI. We use GitHub Copilot to help build engineer solutions into our products every day. Every day, it's in the hands of our engineers, in the hands of our even back office folks such as myself. Right. It's become one of the most revolutionizing revolutionizing, I'd say investments that we have at Honeywell in years, absolute years.
It's fascinating. We've had the opportunity to meet with like Sheila Jordan and get to an idea of how Honeywell is utilizing and some of the advanced stuff that you guys are doing. We sit it back in awe. It's like, this is really cool. But to your point, you've got thousands of engineers and software developers that are you need to enable through the use of some of these tools, right? So,
it's and I got to give a lot of credit to Sheila Jordan, the entire leadership team under Vimal Kapoor for Honeywell. They've really placed a lot of emphasis on generative AI, AI as well, just not always just generative, right? Yep. And the value that it's brought for our business. We're cost conscious, just like any company is, right? We got to maintain a cost profile that the business has an appetite for and the market will allow for, right? Yeah. So every business has said, okay, we're going to devote this much capital towards our investments in generative AI in order to make sure that we're leading the edge. We're on the leading edge of defining use cases for internal productivity as well as for market analysis, and making sure that we're actually building out good generative AI use cases for our teams and for our customers.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. Makes sense. Well, so let's get into this conversation about AI, like kind of where we are, where we're headed, and how the Gen AI stuff can really make an impact on our businesses.
Sure.
And again, AI, not new, not something that was just invented, but obviously everybody suddenly decided to sit up and take notice when the LLMs rolled out. It became a lot more tangible for common folk, and honestly, even for a lot of tech folks too, that maybe, just weren't, tuned into that kind of pie in the sky. Like, for sure. I understand what artificial intelligence is, but it's not part of my business yet. It's not part of my day-to-day yet. Yeah. I don't know that's going to happen anytime soon. Why do you think that this version took off so quickly and became such a mainstream part of our conversation now?
Yeah, I think there's two reasons. I think number one is because it's in the hands of, the everyday user, people on their phones, right? That's probably been the most gave it the most momentum in the marketplace. You think about, you talked about ChatGPT before we got started. It's been out there for 2 years, right? And you think about the capabilities there that everyday people like us in the room have at our fingertips if we want to utilize it, right? Yep. So people are taking notice at a personal level and the consumer level, not necessarily even in the business level. I'll get to that in a minute, right? So, if you think about the capability that these tools have, right, and that they've been enabling end users and even kids with every day, right?
For sure.
It's really given a lot of momentum to the whole concept of generative AI. Just a couple of years ago, it was really more about machine learning, and LLMs are a subset of machine learning, right? But where it got a lot of advancement is this whole completely new architecture of technologies that interact with each other, and they can handle much more complex use cases, right? And that's where it became a lot more. I'll say the word fun, right? Yeah. To actually utilize AI every day, and I'll get to the workplace in just a minute, but I'll give you an example. I was on a meeting with a former boss of mine. His name was Lad. He actually took a new role recently, but I was on a meeting with him. He was sharing his screen. Everything's done over Teams these days, right? Right. And he had a background behind him. It was during the holidays, right? It was of a power plant at night, beautifully illuminated, and it had thousands of little Christmas trees sprinkled symmetrically throughout the entire power plant on the outside. And I looked at it and I said, Lad, where is this heavenly power plant that doesn't exist anywhere in the world? How do I get that background? Right. And he says, oh no, this isn't a real picture. I just put this into GPT. I said, this is what I want it to be. And look what it gave me, right? Right. So you're interjecting the concept of having fun with it to the everyday end user, right? Right. And I think that's what's been one of the things that really, spurred the growth of generative AI. So then you take it into the business place, right? You take it into the workplace and you say, how can these technologies solve real world problems for the masses? You think about, pharmaceutical companies utilizing AI to analyze genomes of viruses in hours and come up and formulate an antivirus or a prescription for, a potentially deadly disease within, not hours yet, but weeks and
Very
months.
quickly, right.
Whereas in the past,
Much faster than before, yeah.
Yeah, whereas in the past, these things would have to go through these cycles. It would take months, if not years, to get into the marketplace and save millions of lives, right? So the power of this is we're only grazing the tip of the iceberg here, right? And so if you think about complex tasks that you have to do in the workplace every day, right? Looking for that needle in the haystack, right? Generative AI gives you the capability to do just that, right? And companies are starting to realize that if they don't start to invest here, they're going to be left. They're going to be left in the dust because competition is investing in this space.
Yeah.
So those are the two reasons why I think it's really taken up momentum in the last year.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it kind of hit us all in that human way, right?
Yeah.
Like it was the first time you could interact with technology and have it come back to you in a way that sounded really human.
Yes.
And I think that freaked a lot of people out. Right? We talked about that before. It's like, dang, they just came back with a really good answer.
Right.
And okay, it's still not perfect. And, because obviously being marketers, we use the technology pretty extensively.
Right,
I mean, I know from a research perspective, just the ability to do that, to interact with and get back meaningful content in a very humanistic way, really kind of blew the doors off of its ability. Now, today, we continue to use it as well from a generative standpoint. You talked about the images and things of that nature. We're starting to get into uses of video. Which is really kind of scary because you can prompt it in certain ways and woof. It comes back to, we used some of it at VARTech. We used a rocket launch and we actually did Gen AI to develop that. So from a marketing standpoint, we've been kind of, like, hey, this guy thought he was losing his job, because he's the content guy. He's like, no, you're not going to lose your job.
Not really.
But it can augment.
That much better.
Right?
It'd be that much better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an enhancement is what it became.
But to your point, Michael, I mean, I think the companies are going to have to learn how to use this tool.
Yeah.
And if they're putting their head in the sand, you're going to be behind the curve.
Absolutely.
Your competitors are going to be 2x, 3x, 5x be able to leapfrog where you're at.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to touch on too that you mentioned earlier was the concept of voice, pictures, right, and text. I mean the concept of multimodal, right? If I don't bring up the word multimodal in this, George Lamb, who you guys know really well, leads our US&C business at Honeywell PSS, is probably going to jump down my throat because I failed to mention the word multimodal, and she said it in a British multimodal, right? After my panel last week in Orlando, right?
Classic.
But the idea is that you can utilize your voice to interact and give you an output either via text or via audio or even pictorial, right? Or even, utilizing video, right? And I think about too, I want to come back to your question as soon as I remember what it was, but we talk about the idea of fun, right? And multimodal. I was in a Facebook scroll trance a few weeks ago.
As you do.
And a video came up of the epic battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, the last one. Right. And as I was watching, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't how it goes, right? This isn't right. It turned out it was an AI generated rendition, which by the way was probably better than the actual one that was published in the movie. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just somebody that does this and has their hands on the technology and can do this, on their gaming monitor in their dark basement. Right.
Yeah. We're not talking about like a film studio doing it. We're talking about just a rando doing it that has access to this technology.
Exactly. And that's just another example of like how it's become real and it's become fun and it's become revolutionizing for industries. So what was your question?
Geez, I don't remember. I don't know.
Hopefully we've got a good train of thought.
That's all right. We'll get back into it, I'm sure. I'm with you on this because I feel like, the LLM obviously, it made a clear path for people to understand how this technology works.
Yeah.
So I think it's partly that because, I think people are in general with technology are like, that sounds neat. That sounds neat.
Yeah.
But until I understand how it affects me and what I can do with it, I'm not that interested in it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this one, and maybe it's a product of some good marketing and just the way they rolled it out and the way they presented it to folks made it very tangible for people to understand. Like, hey, here's what this can do for you. This can be a new search tool for you. This can accelerate your writing. Can help you be more creative. Even though that was not all that it can do.
Great point.
It was enough to make the masses sit up and take notice. And once the masses take notice, then I feel like all the businesses and corporations start paying attention and go, oh, we need to start doing this too. And now you get every business on the planet is saying, we got AI too, even if they don't necessarily need it. They still are trying to figure out how to shove it into their business model somewhere.
It's really, really interesting too. Another use case. So I don't know if you guys have tried Microsoft Copilot. Right?
A little bit. Yeah.
I'm not here to give an
endorsement. Right.
We've rolled it out to certain levels in the organization at Honeywell, right? And there's a lot of capability there as it interacts with the Microsoft suite of tools, right? And I'll give you an example. We challenged our legal department to come through thousands of pages of legal contracts, right? And, assess them for risk. And they had like 2 weeks to get it done. And they looked at us and said, there's no way, right? Well, if you have Copilot, right? And this was a year ago before we actually had released it, right? If you have Copilot, you can upload that and actually utilize it to comb through and say, as long as the persona is crafted with explicit instructions, you can actually have it analyze those contracts for risks in a matter of seconds.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Volumes of contracts, right?
Yes. Volumes.
Right.
I'm talking encyclopedia type volumes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it does it lickety split, right?
Don't tell the lawyers we don't need them anymore.
well, and that's
they're not going to like that.
They'll litigate their way back into a job.
Exactly.
Right.
They'll bury AI.
No. But one interesting point about that too is it's called Copilot for a reason.
Right.
It's not autopilot.
Right.
It's Copilot. You still need to validate.
Someone's got to have their hands on the stick still. Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
And we're going to talk about data and the importance of it here in a minute, I'm sure, right? But you got to make sure that the output that the Copilot or the GPT or whatever the machine learning, machine vision output is giving you, is what you want it to say. And that's one of the big risks that I see in the industry too, is responsible adoption, right? Because look, people are busy, right? Every day you don't have time to get to emails, you don't have time to get back to whatever work product that's tied to your job because you got so many other priorities, right? So the habit will be eventually people utilize Copilot to do their job for them, and there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be hallucinations. There's going to be things that hit the market that you say, ooh,
that didn't turn out well.
That's not what we wanted it to
that
say.
Was a mistake.
Exactly. And so responsible adoption, you got to make sure that it is truly a co-pilot, not an autopilot.
Right. Well, and to your point, like on the creative side, as someone who does a lot of writing himself, like the reason why I don't feel terribly insecure about my writing gig at this point is because I've seen some of the stuff that it will produce, and I've already learned like what is clearly been produced by AI and what had a human touch. And granted, you can take the stuff the AI created, apply the human touch to it, and make it that much better. But it's very clear when someone just copied and pasted something, and you go, I know where you got that from. And it doesn't work. It's the same way that people were already starting to recognize the photos and the videos. Even though that stuff looks great, there's still little tells, and people, it's that uncanny valley, like we always talk about, like in digital animation a long time ago, that people still can kind of see, like the something around the edge that doesn't feel quite right, and that's happening, I think, in the writing portion of things now too.
What's interesting about that too is they can score it. You can look at the scoring of the probability or how much of the content was generated by AI, right? And college professors, I don't know about you, but when I was in undergrad, I had to write paper.
Paper, on a typewriter, but anyway.
I'm
going to date myself. Yes, it was an auto-correcting typewriter, but still it was a typewriter.
Or maybe the very early word processors, if you were really lucky.
But you can utilize these GPTs to create the work product of writing a paper, right? And so you're basically cheating yourself out of an education if that's what you decide to do, right? Exactly. And teachers they don't have the time to research everyone and say was this GPT generated or not. So there is a lot of risk. There's definitely a lot of risk.
Yeah, but it's intriguing. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
It's intriguing from your perspective, from a hardware manufacturer. In trying to integrate some of this technology. I mean, obviously, you guys are involved in software development. Are you trying to apply some of your processes and using these LLMs in a similar fashion? I mean, there's quality control to your point,
certainly,
right?
certainly.
So you can't just lean on LLMs or AI and just assume that everything's going to be good, because that could turn out not well.
Very much. Yeah. Very, very correct. Yes, we are. A matter of fact, there aren't I don't think there's a single division in Honeywell that isn't starting to dip their toes in or actually start utilize AI capabilities to do not their everyday job, but we're starting with kind of the repetitive tasks.
Right.
Okay. So if you think about engineering and software development, right? Something that takes an awful lot of time, there's really two things that I think take an awful lot of time is requirements gathering and then testing, right? This is stuff that our functional teams, non-IT people just don't have time to do. Right.
Yeah.
So we are utilizing GitHub, and we're utilizing Copilot to help us generate requirements and then actually automate the acceptance testing phases of our projects, right?
Nice.
So you build software, you unit test it, an IT guy is going to make sure that it works, as designed, right? And they're going to pass it off to the functional team and say, okay, we need you to certify this. Some of these things
on components and stuff like that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Some of these test cases, I ran a project last year, 1,400 user acceptance test cases. Who's got time? Who's got
1,400.
Who's got time for that?
Yeah. Right.
Right. But you want to make sure that it's done correctly, right?
For sure. Right.
So you utilize the tools, the AI tools, to generate that work product for you and say, this is what the expected outcome is, right? It's not going to be 100% perfect to your point, right? But directionally, it's going to be pretty darn correct, and it's going to tell you where you need to look.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you think that's giving you, advantages on product release and things like that? I mean, your to-market strategy now is compressed?
No question.
Okay.
No question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shorter.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So, and we'll get later on about some of the investments that Honeywell is making. I don't know if you guys read the press release from Monday of this week, where we signed a deal with Qualcomm to deploy mobile devices that are powered by their Gen AI chips.
Got it.
Right.
Nice. Yep.
So right now it's targeted September 2025 is when we're planning to release this product. Right. My guess is that would not have been possible. That's not going to be possible if we hadn't been. We're not utilizing generative AI in our development processes.
Got it. Yeah,
okay,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that capability here shortly. It's really exciting for us at Honeywell.
Good stuff. Well, let's go a little further down the line of thinking about the use cases here. You've already kind of hit on a couple. You talked about like the legal documents, for instance, and the product testing, and getting through some of the minutia that can slow down a deployment and slow down putting a new product in the market. Let's think about this from a reseller's point of view.
Sure.
That's trying to go out and win business, trying to develop solutions for their customers, trying to find out where a solution might fit.
Yep.
What are some ways you think that these kind of tools can help them to grow their business, to automate other processes? Is there anything else where you think is kind of low-hanging fruit that you could immediately go out there and grab Gen AI and use it to improve your business?
Yeah, so there's two. I'm going to focus on one that's kind of external facing, then I'm going to focus on another that's a little bit more internal facing, right? So customer insights, right? If you think about all the data that's available for a customer on the external marketplace, we'll just call it basically the internet, the web, right? If they're publicly traded, what do you got? You got quarterly reports, 10K.
Lots of information.
Right? You've got S&P Global, right? You got transcripts calls, right? Again, multi-modal. That's verbal, right?
Yep.
Right? All of that data that's mined by your sellers, right? And you got one guy that might have an account, and he's out there looking all over the place for, what the business conditions are for BlueStar, as an example, right?
Right.
He or she might not have the time to mine all that information and come up with a business proposal that says, hey, I can solve your problem by selling you these products. Right. What we've done is we've taken that information, we've merged it into our Azure and OpenAI instances, right, to generate an insight into what the business pivot is from those reports, right? That is automatically uploaded to Salesforce as an insight to the customer, to the sales leader, right? Now they've mined all of that public data to find out what the latest and greatest on that customer, in this case, BlueStar, is, right? And they understand what the business pivot is. They now understand what it is they want to go after and how they can make that customer more successful.
Right.
So it's about, again, finding that needle in the haystack, right? The other thing that we're doing too is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this stat was mind blowing to me. I'm going to make sure I look it up so that I quote this correctly here. We actually have over 600,000 tech support inquiries on an annual basis at Honeywell.
Wow. Moly.
600,000. Right?
What is that per day?
Yeah, right. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of it's due to the diversity of our products, right? We got more than 30 lines of business and an awful diverse product portfolio, right? So, but 600,000 is a workload of a lot, right? And when I was at actually VARTech with you guys last week, walking around to some of the booths, talking to our partners and getting feedback, right? And some of the feedback that they gave us at multiple sites was that we do not respond quickly to tech support queries, right? At Honeywell, right? So what are we doing about that, right?
Yeah.
So we are utilizing generative AI to comb through historical cases, right? Understand the inquiry, right? And then go out to those historical cases utilizing both video, pics, text in the case, right? To generate what would be the probable root cause and then the answer to the tech service request. The liberation of time for those people answering those requests is going to be just absolutely monumental for them. They're just like an anvil off their back. They're not going to have 40 cases waiting on them when they go home every night. They might have a handful because they're able to mine all that data, go across all of our technical architecture to find out what the potential issue is and then solve it that much more quickly, right? So, internal and external use cases, definitely we're paying attention to both of them and definitely spaces where we think we can do better. And partnering with, distributors such as BlueStar.
Yeah. I think part of the magic of what's going to transpire is the ability to train these AIs on unique, bespoke information or data. Yep. And then being able to leverage that, which I think Honeywell is doing a fantastic job, again, from everything that we see. And we're envious in the sense from a BlueStar standpoint because we want to do some of the same things. I mean, as you were just talking about your customer interaction, we get it too, right? We get tens of thousands of requests that come in. So we're looking for ways in which we can leverage AI to extract the data out of that, which is very unique to our business.
Right.
And by the way, through private LLMs and things like that, we're not going to put that into a public space. I mean, this is like our little pots of gold that we want to train our stuff
proprietary
on
data,
on our proprietary data, right?
Yep.
Which I do think is key. And I think that resellers need to understand that concept of perhaps not utilizing, I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but perhaps not utilizing public source Gen AI and things of that nature. You really need to kind of focus efforts on privatizing that because that's where the information is. And you want to make sure that whatever you're training it on is specific for a customer. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about the competitive advantages of being a first mover in this revolution, right? So, I mean, there is an element of making sure that you're holding on to the keys, right? Mm-hmm. But what's a little bit different about this one, in my opinion, versus previous movements is there's a lot more community sharing of data and information and thought leadership. Right. I mean, look, I've presented for BlueStar now twice in the 4 months that I've been with PSS, right? Because that's what generative AI is about. There's not as much hoarding as we've seen in the past, right? But there is still some because you don't want to, there's a lot of proprietary information in there. Especially in the public marketplace and the consumers and the ChatGPT users, right? There's a lot of community sharing.
Yeah,
definitely.
Which is a net good. And I don't, in the realm of, when I take a step back and think about resellers and how can they start utilizing it and things of that nature from the looking inward, it's making sure that you're aware of the tool sets that you're using. I guarantee those are getting AI generated or AI bolt-ons now to them that you need to be able to leverage and understand. So when you talk about digital transformation, and I know a lot of companies, we're all going through this digital transformation. We all need to be aware of that. you really got to be aware of that, I think, from a reseller standpoint. And you got to be aware of what the manufacturers are doing on this front so that you can leverage some of the capabilities that they're bringing to the table. Because
what they're doing is going to trickle down to you as well.
100%. And to your end customers, right? And if you don't understand those things, then your competition is going to, again, leapfrog you and potentially come in with solutions that you could have done, but you were unaware. So
I love the tech support example because I feel like it's one of the ways that sometimes we try to talk about Gen AI with folks and how they can utilize it in their business. Again, outside of the stuff that everyone expects is what are some mundane tasks that have to be done, but that you feel like your people, whether they're salespeople, marketing people, finance, whatever it is, spend a lot of time, like kind of not wasted time, because it's the stuff that has to be done. It's part of your business. But the time that they're spending when they could be focused on other tasks that are much more critical,
strategic,
and much more, they require a lot of mind share. And we all have those. Every function has those tasks that you're like, oh, here's that time when I do this thing every week, and it takes me an hour and a half to do it. Imagine if that was something that instead of an hour and a half, it took 10 minutes to do. Yeah. You just punched a little bit of information in somewhere. Again, use some kind of persona that understands your business, what you need to get out of that data or whatever you're feeding in, and then gives you what you need. And now, hey, suddenly you've got an extra hour back in your day to go out and focus on customer facing conversations or, building out a business plan or whatever it is.
The first chapter of your job description.
Yeah.
Right. The stuff that gets you on the
core,
really interesting stuff, right? It's the stuff that's, 5-6 paragraphs down that we're trying to automate here.
When they suggested that a skill proficiency in Microsoft Excel would be beneficial, you didn't realize that meant you were going to be spending 6 hours of every other day. Sitting on a spreadsheet. So
exactly.
Let's go down the data analysis route then, because I think we've kind of hinted and touched on that a few times. You mentioned we were getting to that. That is becoming obviously more and more important in a lot of industries, especially as we start operating so many more devices that are out on the edge. And we're gathering data on the edge. We want to be able to analyze that data as quickly as possible, act on it, not have to go booting it around the world or the country in order to get what we need out of it. So how does Gen AI get to help with that? Make that become a more important part of a sale when someone's going out and trying to sell a solution, knowing that they need to address the data analysis portion and what someone's going to get out of it. How's Gen AI going to help out with that?
So if you think about the evolution of data and analytics, right? I'd say 5-10 years ago, it was a lot of business intelligence. Do you guys remember that term, BI?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. And then, you had the Internet of Things and analytics. Right, the whole concept of analytics, utilizing your Power BI reports, right, to generate,
dashboards,
right? Help you run.
We're talking about a time where
you got a dashboard.
Dashboards,
you got dashboard envy. How come he's got better dashboards than I do?
Anyway, not to completely throwing me off my game here, guys. I love it. Right. And then you had the advent of machine learning, right, which got you a little bit more rich outcomes and visual into how your business was performing, right? Well, now you've got generative AI, you've got AI capabilities, which are the true, essence of automated intelligence, right? Because it's reaching out across platforms, multiple technology sets, and the computing power required is now there, right? To handle these complex tasks, right? And I want to talk about that here in a little bit. But essentially, the capacity and the technology is now available to handle much more complex rather than just mundane tasks that say, okay, have you shipped enough product this week to meet your goals, right? It's now you're now asking questions. What product do I need to ship? 3, 6, 12 months out, and that are going to have the profitability outcome that I'm looking for to run my business more profitably, right? And that's just like a teeny tiny snippet of what's possible with this technology, right? So, you move from dashboards and reporting, analytics, whatever you want to call it, to generating really rich insights into either what's going on in your operation or what's going on externally. Could be in the marketplace, could be internationally, wherever the information is available.
Right.
It's becoming much more, I keep using the word rich. I mean, that's what it is. It's much more depth of the insights being gleaned from the analytic turned generative AI engine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What I like about it is when I look at the marketplace, it's contextualizing a lot of the data, right?
Yeah.
So there's these mounds of data, but and interpreting it. That absolutely. Which you see all these ISVs now just popping all over the place. It's the Wild West,
right?
As we all know, and we talk about AI is this Wild West. I'd like to get your take on this, Michael. What I'm starting to see are, obviously platforms are now becoming, in my mind, more and more relevant. So, for example, we showed at VARTech that we have a new partner, Nexus AMR, that has a robotics platform. And then in that platform, you can plug in different AIs. You can plug in different robots. You can plug in, and yes, it all comes back to in a dashboard. Talk about dashboard envy. That's a really cool dashboard to see all these robots rolling around. But anyway, I feel like that's the motion that the industry is going in, is that you've got these disparate capabilities, but how do you solutions integrators need to be able to wrap their hands around those and bring them into play.
How do you tell a story?
Yes, you need to tell that story because the data's there. You got to interpret the data. You got to contextualize it. You got to make it meaningful, right? Yeah. But there's so many little niches that can get. I don't know. I know I'm throwing you a curveball, but
it's fine.
What's your?
I think I got what you're going towards here. And the concept of a platform itself. Be it an AI platform, even a product platform, right?
Right.
Is becoming a lot more prevalent in the industry, especially manufacturing today. Right. So, I mean, you don't really necessarily go to, as a solution provider, you don't necessarily go to a customer and say, how many phones can I sell you? Or how many mobile devices can I sell you? You ask them what the problem is, and then you figure out, because Honeywell is a conglomerate, right? We've got thousands of products, right?
From aerospace to mobile devices, right?
Yeah. So you ask them what's the entire solution that you're looking for, right? And then you try to sell a platform, right, of solutions, right? And I think we're not really that. I'll be honest, we're not great at that cross selling. We call it at Honeywell today.
Yeah, but I see the industry going in that direction. Absolutely. I see you guys going in that direction, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's part of the investment that we've placed in asset management, enterprise asset management too at Honeywell is the whole concept of cross-business selling, right? So if you've got, if a customer's standing up a new warehouse in, Spokane, Washington, right? They might need a business that can automate the conveyor. They'll probably need a business that can handle the endpoints, the rugged compute, right? So we need to bring those businesses together to provide a platform solution for them. Absolutely, definitely where the industry is going.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. All right, well then let's talk about the next step for Gen AI. And again, this is where I'm going to let you do a little prognosticating and predict the future on
Crystal
the record.
ball. Yes.
Well, I'll hold you to this. Do you think we're just going to keep moving full steam ahead? Are we due for some of the inevitable blowback? We know regulation and legislation is probably on the way. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stink that's been made about the fact of how these LLMs have been taught, where that information's coming. Exactly. The lawyers are getting involved, which always means there's going to be some kind of hiccups for better and for worse potentially.
Oh, for sure.
So where do you think we're going next? What's the next step?
Well, I do think regulation is going to come. It's just a matter of in what form, right? Some industries are going to rely solely on generative AI in the next few years, right? And I'm talking pharmaceuticals especially, right? The compute power to reduce time to market for products, especially in like pharmaceuticals, it's unbelievable the capacity that's there now to generate good outcomes and advance quality of life, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about here, right? So, but I do think over time, and I would hope soon, right, that there is regulatory authority that comes in and says, here's what responsible use of generative AI and here's what irresponsible use of generative AI is, right? And then they start to regulate it. And some countries will be much more strict than others, for sure. But no, I don't think that this is just a what do they call it, flash in the pan.
Right.
This is something that's going to be here and it's going to change the way all of us live on every day, right? And I don't go too far then to look at the deal that Microsoft and Constellation Energy announced. I think it was earlier this week actually, where they're going to reopen the 3 Mile Island.
I just saw that.
Yeah.
Right. they're opening up a nuclear plant solely for the purpose of powering Microsoft's AI.
It sounds nuts on the surface, but it makes sense.
For the next 20 years. So I was listening to a Morgan Stanley podcast called Thoughts on the Market. It was Stephen Bird, who runs their sustainability research and division. I had to write this down because you got to remember these titles of people get so long-winded.
Right.
Okay, they estimate that today in the United States, 3% of the electric consumption comes from data centers.
Wow.
Today, 3%.
3%.
Do you know what they're estimating that's going to be by 2027?
Like 30% or something, maybe.
So 3 years hence.
3 years from now, 8%. Right, more than doubling,
almost tripling.
Still, that's impressive.
Almost tripling the percentage of consumption by data centers in the United States. And so you see these, these shuttered, nuclear plants coming back online to power a data
We need
center.
more power.
Right. So when I talk to people about this concept, and you get your mailer from, Duke Energy or whoever that says, hey, you want to lock in your energy rates?
Yes, please.
Maybe this is the time to do that. Yeah.
Yes. Right. This is definitely not going away. You can see the investment that large corporations like Microsoft are placing in generative AI just to make sure that they maintain a leading advantage.
Follow the money, right?
Absolutely.
You follow the money, and that alone. Much of the growth in the marketplace has happened over the last few years has been all fueled through AI.
Yeah.
So where there's money, there's will. to
no
a
question.
certain degree.
No question.
Money can will things into existence, and I think you're starting to see a lot of that. It is very, very fascinating. But back on the regulation, it'll be interesting to see how that happens. Because obviously Washington always gets the rub that there's so many years behind, right? I mean, we're just now getting to social media,
right?
That's been around for 15 years.
Social media is dying, but we're going to start regulating it now.
AI is even faster than that, right?
Yep.
I mean, all this stuff is happening at a blistering pace. It's like,
It
oh,
really
geez,
is.
I know. Can they even catch up? Don't know.
I mean, there's risk out there, right? So, we talked about machine vision at VARTech in Orlando just last week, right? And I was talking with Rob Rizzani of Intel about one of the use cases or the examples of irresponsible machine vision. And he showed an example where I think it was Kevin Costner got arrested for shoplifting, right? And they showed a photo of the shoplifter. Look, he was a doppelganger and a half.
Looked just like him.
He wasn't anywhere near where the crime was, right? And so, I mean, there's again responsible adoption, responsible use cases, and eventually regulatory authority is definitely going to weigh in, right? So again, some countries will be more aggressive about it than others. Thankfully, in the United States, we like the concept of free speech, and I think it'll be. I think responsibility is going to have to be what comes forward.
Yeah,
definitely.
We've commented on it. It'll be interesting to see how it affects different industries and the employment in some of those industries. I mean, we know, again, going back to the fact that we're marketers and we understand and see its influence. We've brought up like Hollywood. I think you hear stories about some studios were being built. Now they're being shuttered or put on the side because when you can create Gen AI that, of Obi-Wan fighting Darth Vader and it looks just as good as though it were filmed in camera or better.
Yeah.
Ooh,
But at the same time, all of Hollywood just literally went on strike in order to combat back against that. And basically, put it that, hey, you're not going to be allowed to replace us if you want us to work for
writers
you.
and actors.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, this is the reason why they went on strike because I mean, there was job protection there.
Well, I was reading, when James Earl Jones passed away recently, and they were talking about how apparently he had given his voice over to Disney in order to use it in perpetuity if they want to, for the voice of Darth Vader in the future. And I guess apparently even for like the last couple projects that Vader's voice was in, it wasn't him. It wasn't actually James Earl Jones sitting in a studio anymore and recording anything. They were just using imprints and and modifications from his voice using AI to still go out and do that kind of stuff. And that starts creating sticky situations, and you've got people that have passed away, entertainers that passed away now that are their families have to cope with the idea of like a studio trying to potentially use them.
Oh, for sure.
So again, there's just so much, man. Like it's one of those things. Like the technology is amazing, but then you start wondering about all these implications that start getting bigger and bigger. And Someone's got to get their arms around it at some point, I guess.
Yeah.
No, that's his job.
We're going to leave that to the regulators.
Okay.
My job is to drive it.
There you go.
There you go.
You'll just turn it into something useful that everybody can get something out of.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. Well, hey, before we wrap up today, as always, we want to thank our sponsors here on the TEConnect podcast. Of course, a big shout out to Honeywell.
Absolutely.
You guys are always sponsoring our TEConnect program, which in turn supports the pod. So we appreciate you and letting us Michael to chat with today. If you like the show, you got to let us know, though. You got to, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, leave a comment for us, subscribe to our channel, any podcast platform where you are listening. Hit the like button there. Leave us a rating and review. We'd love to start seeing some of those. Tell us what your favorite episode was. Is it the one where Dean flubbed up something or I flubbed up something?
That happens all the time.
It does. In fact, you can do that too. You're welcome to tell us what we've messed up. I might ignore those particular reviews, but you can still do that. And of course, reach out to us. Tell us what you want to hear about on the show.
If they have an idea.
If you have some ideas, if there's a topic that we discussed today and you want us to go a little bit further, and we can always drag Michael back in here. He's local. He'll come back.
I think we dropped the ball a little bit on this one because you get a T-shirt if you do that, right?
You get a T-shirt.
We don't have a T-shirt for Michael today.
Oh, we don't.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Right,
take care.
We'll get one sent
next time. We'll take care of you.
Yes. So just for submitting an idea to us, you can get a TEConnect podcast T-shirt. We'll send that out to you. Even if we don't use your idea, we'll still send you a T-shirt just for putting in the effort to actually do that. And by the way, we probably will use your idea because we like getting good ideas from our audience. So as always, you can go to our show notes. You'll find a link to send those ideas into us. You can also reach out to us anytime online. You can find us on BlueStar's LinkedIn page. Of course, we're always posting up our episode recaps there. And you can also email us anytime, TEConnect@bluestarinc.com. All right, let's wrap things up here, starting with a little VAR value.
Yes.
And Michael, you've talked a lot about obviously what Honeywell's already doing here in the AI space and how you've tackled it. You're bringing in the co-pilot. You're signing new partnership deals. So go a little bit further down there. Like how are you dealing with this explosion of AI? What's the expectation within the company? How has it changed your business and how you guys are going to market now?
Yeah. So I talked a little bit about it earlier. Pretty much every division in Honeywell is investing in this in some way, shape, or form to basically help out with we'll call them mundane. You talked about the mundane repeatable tasks, the stuff that's 5 paragraphs down on your job description, right? To get us to a point where we're at Honeywell, where we're actually able to find that needle in a haystack, be it an error in the software development or, a configuration change that needs to be handled on the hardware, right? Every division is placing some sort of emphasis in this, human capital management too, sales, marketing, right? The ability to understand, how your customer is performing and how you can make them better, right? Every department is investing in AI. And then, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a plug for the announcement that our PSS division made earlier this week, where we signed a deal with Qualcomm Technologies to implement their AI chip into our next generation rugged mobility products. That's going to enable multimodal. We talked about multimodal, right? Capabilities for the end user, right? On a day-by-day basis. Oh, it's absolutely huge. So if you think about, maybe it's a sales rep that's walking the floor at a department store, he or she might be able to say, do we have any variants of this product in stock? Exactly. Right. Yep. And the tool, the mobile device that Honeywell has produced now, we'll be able to plug into their ERPs, be able to plug into their inventory management systems and say, we have it. Not only do we have it, but it's in this aisle. They might be able to show you a store a map of where that product is in the store or in the warehouse in the stocking shelves in the back.
Unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
That's so
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. At the palm of your hand, right? Think about it, right? And so, you've taken a voice request, right? And it's given you either a verbal or a written or a pictorial response that says, yes, we have it, or no, we don't, and here's when it's going to be there. Right. The power of that computing capability there at the palm of your hand for the end users.
That's exciting. That
really
is exciting.
Really exciting.
That's
it's something we really look forward to partnering with BlueStar.
Well, we look forward to selling it because I think we'll sell quite a few of them.
Yes. I think so too. Yeah, I appreciate that Honeywell has very much leaned in on this because I think, again, sometimes these new technologies and new innovations can come out and people are they dial it back a little. They just stand back and go, I'm going to see how this plays out.
The wait and see.
Yep.
And then I'll get in.
Yep.
And I think the true innovators are the ones that just go like, all right, we're going to lean into this. It may not even go anywhere, but we're going to lean in anyway and see where it takes us. And then in this case, it's taken you a lot of new places. So.
It absolutely has. And that's just one case of where we're building it into our products, right? Pretty much, I would say, almost every product that we have at Honeywell will have some generative AI component built into it in the next few years. I would be very surprised if it's not the case.
Yeah, definitely.
A bold claim, but I think one that'll come true. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There you go.
That'll age well.
Yeah, there you go.
Say, yeah.
I like that one. Yeah, that's one we can hold you to that I think will go well.
Yeah.
All right, hey, let's wrap things up with what's TEConnecting with you. This is our favorite segment. We get to talk about something in the world of technology, science, business, innovation, just whatever we feel like chatting about today that's on our mind. Mike, I'll let you kick it off here. What's TEConnecting with you right now?
I mean, what are you guys seeing, outside of Honeywell, and what are you guys seeing in the industry, distributors, and how are they utilizing generative AI? That's my question back to you guys.
Distributors, how are they using Gen AI?
Yeah.
I can tell you how we're using Gen AI. I don't know how our competition is using. Hopefully, they're not using it.
That's right. Yeah. They're the stand back and seers. Hopefully, yeah.
No, but candidly, I mean, distributors have a mound of data, right?
Yep.
We've got all kinds of data that people want. So we are working diligently to try to contextualize. I'll bring that word again. What does all this data mean? Number one. Number two, how can we enable our partners with it? So, our optics are always, we understand that we're kind of in the middle of this sphere of activity that's going on. And a lot of times, people look to distribution for content, information, things of that nature. So we are really trying to unlock it through such things as vendor portals, where we can report back to you the data in context, so that you can now leverage that information, whether it's through product development or whatnot. We really see that as being a path in the future. We're just starting that journey now. We've actually learned some from you folks and what you're doing. So I think there's a lot of collaboration.
In place.
Absolutely. This is the type of collaboration we're going to have to do in order to be successful. Then it also iterates its way. We're using Gen AI in content.
Yeah,
as the aforementioned imagery, video.
On the marketing side of things, I mean, if you're doing any kind of marketing, if you're doing any kind of audience research, I do a lot of end user marketing campaigns on in partnership with our vendors and their ISV partners, and sometimes just being able to just gather information using Gen AI can be just such a handy tool that whereas before
would take hours, seconds.
I didn't in the past, you go to Google and you're just like looking up a bunch of different articles and hoping that it's something relevant, hoping that it's something recent, hoping it doesn't collide and clash with something else. Now I feel like there's a lot less of that I have to do, and again, this is where the human touch works out though, because sometimes you go and you ask Gen AI a question and it gives you a very boring, straightforward answer that's not really what you wanted. But you put a little bit of extra time into it. You ask a few more questions. You ask for a little more detail. And that's one of the things that I love about working in it is that I don't have to start over again every time and reframe the question. I can be just like, hey, elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Give me a little more detail on that stat that you gave me. Cite some sources where I can find stuff. Give me some links where I can go read more about that particular topic that you just mentioned. And it makes that research angle just so much faster and easier. It helps me understand end user audiences, especially, again, I'm going out sometimes and doing stuff for the end user of our customer who may be someone that I don't understand anything about their business. There's times there's angles of our business sometimes I don't know as much about as I could. And then but when I got to go learn about that, I'm like, man, it's so nice to have a quick and simple tool that lets me understand so much more about that business, about their challenges and their needs and what's going on in their world. So then I can start crafting messages and marketing and stories around that.
The marketing is actually a really interesting one. You guys probably shop on Amazon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever read the reviews?
Yeah.
An AI example, great application of AI is the summary.
Yeah.
Before the very first review, commenters, buyers are saying this about the product. They're pleased with the quality, a little disappointed by the customer service, whatever, right? You don't have to scroll through 100 and look for the 5 stars and the 1 stars, right? To get the real meat and potatoes of what it is that you're looking for now, right? Marketing.
So helpful.
So helpful, right? I mean, that's the first place that I go when I'm evaluating a purchase now on Amazon.
Yeah, I agree. I love that kind of stuff, the summary stuff. And you're even seeing it in just general search now, too.
True.
You just go search something on Google and it'll give you kind of a summary piece where it's essentially kind of like, hey, rather than you clicking through these 50 websites, here's the basic information you're going to find on most of those. And then if you want to dive deeper, you can from there. So I appreciate that stuff.
For sure. Yep.
All right, cool. Dean, what's TEConnecting with you right now?
Do you like flu shots?
I mean, I get them every year.
Michael, do you like taking the kids in and getting flu shots?
It's.
I mean, is it?
I gotta be honest, Dean. Yeah. I let my wife do it. Now.
Fair.
That's
fair. That's fair.
She just handles it so well.
Well, here's the headline: U.S. health regulators approve the first self-administered at-home influenza vaccine. Right, delivered by, it's all in the name, FluMist. So FluMist is a nasal
stuff?
spray.
Yeah, okay.
Bingo. Yeah. So this is a quick one, but I read that and I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. You know, because I'm like you. I never really took the kids to. My wife was burdened with that, but I am a little sheepish when it comes to
crying and screaming. Yeah.
In general, you know, like I can always find something else to do if it's my turn to go get this shot. I know you just go out. You're good to go.
I mean, I was getting allergy shots when I was a kid.
But it's like, well, you need to go get your flu booster. Really? I think I got to cut the grass. I don't know, because it's a shot. So for all those people that are like me that are a little anxious, now we've got this nasal spray that was approved by the FDA. They're going to start rolling it out. Hey, that's to me that's good news.
That is great news.
Give me all the vaccinations like that. Just or honestly, here's what I want. I want us to get to the Star Trek hypo spray, which is like the little gun thing that they just kind of put up against you, and
we should have asked.
It's
Captain
not
Kirk.
Actually inserting into the skin. It's essentially on like a microbial level. Just blasting, whatever the vaccine into your body and into your bloodstream.
I should have pegged you for a Trekkie.
Oh, big time.
The moment I met you,
big time. And Star Wars. You
love it.
Endless trivia knowledge over here.
Yeah, if it's sci-fi and geekdom, it's my jam probably.
Absolutely.
So. But that's we're
what
getting
did they call it? What did you call that?
The
again?
hypo spray is what
the hypo spray. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So you ever saw in the shows like somebody come up with someone's neck and
for sure
have like a little device and go, and that's it. That was it. They were just injecting them.
You're immune to the planet now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. You can roam.
No
freely.
after effects. You don't even feel bad for a day.
Exactly. And there actually is some of that out there. Like that does exist. It's just not in mass production and not where it needs to be. Maybe we're getting a little bit.
I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
So anyway, what's
it's got to be great for the kids if nothing else.
For sure.
I always
Gone are the
so
days
bad,
of the big crocodile tears. And, getting a flu shot now.
Exactly.
Spray up your nose. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go.
There was one thing I did fail to bring up earlier. I want to talk about in this segment is a gift that my wife got me for Christmas last year.
Yeah.
And you were telling a story about how a friend of yours gave you a piece of wood for a mantelpiece earlier.
Yes.
It turned out it had a dormant nest of bees inside of it that started wreaking havoc on the inside of your house. I got a plug, right? My wife got me this tool. It's called the Bug Assault.
Okay.
It is literally like a Fisher-Price gun that you load with table salt.
Okay.
You load it with table salt. It's spring-loaded. It does no harm to the body.
Right.
You point this thing at the bug, and it shoots just a teeny tiny bit spray of table salt at the bug, and it's gamified catching the bugs.
Get out of town.
Check it out.
Yep.
It's on Amazon.
All right.
Okay, the Bug Assault.
The Bug Assault.
All right.
It is so much fun every time that there's a bug.
Oh no, honey, I got this one. I got this bug. Yeah. Oh, you need that spider gun? I got it.
Exactly. So we've just had so much fun with this in our house.
All right, we gotta always get one or two stink bugs floating around the house. Maybe that's what I'll deploy that.
Yeah, those are a little dicey because you shoot them and they release that.
Well, that's true,
right?
Yeah.
But it'll work.
Yeah.
It'll work. If not, it'll stun them. Then you can go pick them up with your roll of toilet paper.
Yeah,
that
big thick roll that you don't need because you just don't want to touch it.
I'm not getting paid by Bug Assault for this.
No, you don't have the endorsement deal?
No, I don't.
The NIL?
I got to tell you, it's been a lot of fun.
All right. Well, either way, check the show notes. I'll drop a link to Bug Assault in there.
There you go.
Say this podcast does not get paid for this endorsement.
So what's TEConnecting with you?
All
John?
right. So, we've been talking about AI, and, one of those things I think it's always funny about when new technologies roll out is it's always the criminals that figure out the first, the ways to make money off of it first.
Yeah.
Apparently that's already been happening in the world of AI, and it's been happening even longer than we might have expected. So here's a headline from Ars Technica. FBI busts musicians' elaborate AI-powered $10 million streaming royalty heist.
Wow.
Feds say it's the first U.S. criminal case involving artificially inflated music streaming. So apparently this is somebody...
So how does this work?
This is some North Carolina musician who apparently had tried and failed at creating their own music.
Okay.
And it was not successful.
Failed musician, got it.
Yeah, failed musician.
It's always a fail.
So they decided to, over the course of the last 7 years, they decided to go out and start defrauding streaming services to the tune, again, of $10 million, basically creating multiple AI-generated songs, artists, profiles, building this whole network of these, generated, unreal fake music, and then pushing them out,
automating the download and the subscriptions.
So they push them out to streaming services, and then also used a whole series of computers to create profiles of listeners.
I got
so it wasn't so they, it was, this is how they didn't catch attention for so long. So instead of like suddenly some rando AI generated song getting 10 million streams in one day, they were doing like, here's several thousand different songs scattered across all different genres and platforms.
Brilliant.
And they're all getting a few hundred streams here and there. And this person was collecting the royalties off of this.
The diversified criminal is always the hardest one to catch.
Right?
Yes.
So so they're posting it to Spotify or whatever, and they're getting the royalty check from Spotify.
They're getting all the royalties.
Fake
are all
the music,
coming back to
fake
them.
the audience. Brilliant.
Yes.
Wow.
But had been doing this for 7 years now.
$10 million? That's
$10 million.
That
says
is legit.
If convicted, this person could face up to 20 years in prison for each charge related to this. Because basically what they're really getting them on, because legally speaking, the act of doing that is kind of dicey. There's no like specific...
You mean some ambiguity here?
Right.
You can make it.
Right. So basically it's a wire fraud case they've essentially been building out of this.
Yeah, they got to be able to book them on something, right?
Because it's not like legitimate people that are supposedly collecting the money. The artists are not legitimate. So. But I will say they were very creative. They were creating band names like Callous Post, Calorie Screams, and songs including titles such as Zygotic Washstands and Zymo Technical.
So is the music any good at all?
I don't know.
I would love to hear a sample of some of this. Is it just like a 1K tone?
It's probably
it's
not.
Nothing.
It's probably. I mean, you've heard some of that AI generated music.
Oh, for sure.
Has been put out there. It's about as generic as it can be.
The problem's going to be when one of those songs actually does have a nice tune, a riff that you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty good, and then your kids start downloading it.
Yep.
They start sending out, and then the criminal is really going to be outed because there's going to be a ton of hits.
That's the next Milli Vanilli is going to be some AI generated artist.
Milli Vanilli.
That wins like a bunch of Grammys, and then we find out it was all faked.
It was all fake.
So,
talk about bringing this full circle. We went from generative AI in 2024 to Milli Vanilli in the 1980s.
That's right.
Well done.
Everything old is new again. That is what's TEConnecting with us. Michael Groskopf, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Michael.
Appreciate having you on the show. Hey, until next time, we do have to unplug. But first of all, go out and get a real job. I mean, come on. I say thinking if I can make $10 million and not get in trouble, sure, I would do it too. Find out how generative AI can help your business. And hey, go back and watch this episode again, but start a drinking game for every time that Michael says multi-modal.
Oh, nice. There you go.
And then send us a message about how you're feeling, okay?
Love it.
And as always, folks, please stay connected. This episode of the TEConnect podcast is brought to you by Honeywell. Enterprises face increasing challenges in production flexibility, inventory turnover, and cost control. Honeywell's PM45 industrial printer offers high precision and high volume printing and track and trace functionality to improve efficiency and supply chain transparency in food and beverage, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution center management. PM45 delivers high quality labels in the harshest environments. I think maybe like in the middle of like a snowstorm. Because a lot of warehouses have active snowstorms
inside,
right?
Yeah. No, but if you're out in the yard,
that's true. It could be. Yeah. You have one in the Arctic somewhere, or whatever. Who knows what you're dealing with?
Absolutely.
Or a hot jungle somewhere. I mean, come on. It has the WAN connectivity for 24/7 communication designed for M2M and IoT applications. Software secured by the Honeywell cybersecurity platform. I appreciate they're thinking about security.
Yes.
Operational intelligence MDM for analytics and printer health data, and options to configure and print small jobs without a host computer. PM45 has it all.
There you go.
Check out the linked data sheet in the show notes or contact the BlueStar Honeywell team for info on the 6-inch PM65 as well and available service contracts. TEConnect podcast is brought to you by eLab. The M51 rugged mobile computer delivers a 6-inch full HD touch display, Android 14 OS, and a powerful Qualcomm 6490 octa-core processor. Again, I don't know what that means. Sounds fantastic. Octa-core. It's got integrated NFC and an optional 2D barcode scanner. From enhancing retail store operations and warehouse management to ticketing, you can boost efficiency with the ELO M51 mobile computer. All right, let's talk about some of the features.
Yes, do.
ELO always packs their stuff with features.
Lots of features.
13 megapixel rear camera.
Nice.
An 8 meg front camera. Chemically strengthened glass. IP68 rated. It's got optional accessories including device and battery charges, rubber boots, scan trigger handle, and more. And of course, you get ELO's enterprise grade support for the security provisioning, OEM config, and much more. So to learn more and see additional specs on this brand new mobile computer, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar ELO team.